What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully, you are having a good day. Appreciate you clicking on the video. Greatly appreciate that. So, obviously, from the title, we've got to talk about the NBA Finals, the fact that the champions of the NBA world reside in Boston. So, shout out to my hometown. You guys already know I rep all my teams up there. So we're going to take a look at what happened Game 5, take a look at Celtics moving forward, take a look at Dallas. What does this mean for them? A team that got so close, didn't get over the hump. Should we expect them to be back next year? We'll talk about that a little bit. Just kind of break down what does this mean for certain people on the Celtics squad now that they do have a ring. Some of the narratives that have been around them. Does that quiet the talk or whatever? So, it'll make sense as we get into it. Like I said, anything I talk about, let me know in the comment section how you feel about it. I want to interact with all of you. And also, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But let's go ahead and get into these topics. So, Celtics are now 18-time NBA champions. That breaks the tie from the Lakers, who have 17. This is the moment as the clock hits zero, confetti, smoke cannons, all that going off. It just felt like a culmination of several years of work finally paying off. Because you got to remember, what was it? 2016 is when they took Jaylen Brown. The following season, 2017, is when they took Jason Tatum. So since then, it's been a progression to this point. It's a long time. A lot of work that had to go into it. Today's NBA, you don't necessarily see two guys stay together that long that haven't won a title. These two did and will be together for the foreseeable future. Like, that's going to happen. But like I said, just shout out to them for finally getting it done. Celtics fans have been wanting this moment since 2008. I remember that title as well with Pierce, Garnett, Ray Allen, Rondo. Doc Rivers was the coach at that point. Like, that was big for the city. This one is on level with that. Only because, like I said, it's been 16 years. That's a long time in the sports world. Especially with the season that they had, 64-18, they win the regular season. Questions about whether or not they were actually as good as that record was. They paced everybody else in the NBA, not just the East, because we all know everybody talked about how the East was weak. The West was so much stronger, to the point that, everybody was saying whoever came out of the West would probably win the title because it was just more battle tested. Well, 5 games later into the NBA Finals, the Celtics are the one that are going to raise banner 18 and are champions. But how did we get here necessarily? Because this is a collection. Brad Stevens won Executive of the Year for a reason. It's not just the players. Because remember, Brad Stevens steps in for Danny Ainge, who's now running things over in Utah. He has the Udoka situation happen pretty quickly. Udoka's dismissed. They needed a new coach. Looking around, could have been Damon Stoudemire, some other Will Hardy, who's now the coach in Utah. Joe Mazzulla was the guy. A lot of people didn't know him. He's a college player at West Virginia. Tough, hard-nosed type of guy. I believe he was coaching the G League, Maine Celtics. But he takes the job, last season, finding his way. This year, definitely much better. You also see the moves that Brad Stevens made. Kristaps Porzingis coming in after not living up to the hype necessarily in New York. couldn't make it work with Luka in Dallas. Goes to Washington, playing in Siberia, basically. Actually had a good season, but nobody pays attention. It's Washington. Like the Wizards aren't on, they're not on anybody's radar for obvious reasons. They're not good right now. Xavier Tillman, a guy that's taken from Memphis at the trade deadline, just as kind of a bench big at that point. Was a game 3, comes into the series. He hits a big 3, plays good perimeter defense. He plays well on the interior, grabbing rebounds. Had his moment. Peyton Pritchard, a guy that they draft late out of Oregon, played 4 years at Oregon. We know how the draft works. Everybody's taking freshmen and sophomores. It's a knock on you for being a senior. Well, I mean, what did Peyton Pritchard do in these finals? Knock down, back-breaking, half-court shot after half-court shot. Derek White, guy that was in San Antonio. San Antonio's rebuilding, plucked him away. Now look at him. He's going to be part of the core, as he's going to get a new deal this offseason. Like, there's no doubt about that. Sam Hauser, who's a good three-point shooter in college, has come into his own, made some big critical threes in this series as well. So the contributions were just endless there. Who am I missing? Well, Horford and Holiday I'll talk about in a little bit, as well as Tatum and Brown. But around those 4, a lot of decisions were made in there by Brad Stevens that obviously showed why he won Executive of the Year. I guess just before moving on, you win a title, it's obviously going to be about how do you win the next one. Well, he gets Jaden Springer from Philadelphia, drafts Jordan Walsh, and Jordan Walsh is a young guy out of Arkansas who looks like he could be a pretty good two-way player in this league. So now it's like the development of those two could really shape how the future and maybe the longevity of this group, they could be part of the next generation of it, or part of the rotation that keeps this moving along. So shout out to Brad Stevens for bringing this all together. All right, so looking at Dallas, because obviously looking at it the day after, Luka did what he could. How many did he score? Scored 28 on 25 shots. So once again, the Celtics made it difficult on him. The Game 5 also proved the overreaction to Game 4, as I, called it on Facebook and I think Twitter or something, was rampant. It was for no reason whatsoever, because all that game was, a Celtics team up 3-0, going into Game 4, they played really loose, knowing that what was on the horizon if they didn't get it done was Game 5 back in their building. And they're very confident in their ability to rebound from a loss. A lot of teams would have lost Game 4 and probably would have been mentally broken going into Game 5. This Celtics team gets blown out by like 40, has everybody talk about how embarrassing their performance was, come out in Game 5 and look like the team from Games 1 and 3. Defensively, pressure was there. Offensively, put a lot of pressure on Dallas's defense, these two especially. But Luka, gave it all he could. It definitely looked like by the fourth quarter, Luka was a guy that his body was on E. So even if they had won Game 5, I don't know, 6 would have been tough for him. But being at home, obviously he'd get the adrenaline from that. The bigger focus is Kyrie Irving. Because this is another reason why I was like, don't overreact to Game 4. because Kyrie Irving still has yet to prove he can play in Boston. And once again, what did he do? Not perform. 15 points, 5 of 6 shooting. That's not going to get it done. Now, he did have 9 assists. So I feel like that was something that if he was doing earlier in the series, maybe it's a little bit different in terms of the assists, because that means ball handling wasn't completely on Luka. But the jump shot wasn't there. The crowd was clearly in his head once again. And a lot of people wonder why the crowd still boos him. It's because he still puts together performances like this. So the crowd, obviously thinking they have an effect on him, continue to do what they're doing. So looking at next year, I mean, I don't know, because, the talk today is Luka's obviously going to raise a banner at some point in Dallas. I don't know how much of it. I mean, you can't really make that guarantee on anybody. The same way the Celtics won the title, I can't guarantee that they're going to win a second one because it's tough to win. Now, Luka as a talent, you can't knock him for what he can do offensively. He's, strong, has great touch, his range. He's got all that. I'm interested to see what the offseason brings with him. Like, does he come in next season, kind of transform his body a little bit? I'm not saying he has to drop like crazy amount of weight, but I just don't know if current Luka could necessarily win a title as he currently is, with the rigors of 82 games and how long of a playoff run you have to go on to win a title. So I don't doubt Luka's ability to do it. I mean, the guy's been a pro since he was 14 years old, so he understands what it takes. I'm interested to see him getting a taste of the finals this year. Does that change now his approach to next season? And if he does, the West could be on notice. I mean, for Kyrie, I get that he's in a better, place mentally, emotionally, however you want to put it now, than he was in Boston. But something, look, maybe it's just subject to Boston that he has this mental hurdle that he just needs to get over. But whatever it takes for Kyrie to kind of get over the situation, he has to figure out what that is. Because they're going to run it back next year with these two. He's going to have in the back of his mind that if we get back to the finals, there's a good chance we could face the same team with the same crowd that's going to be just as loud as they were this time around. And he's going to have to be able to get by that. Now, looking at the other parts, I think the makeup is there with a few tweaks, of course. I just feel like offensively, they probably could do more. They do a lot of Luka and Kyrie taking turns trying to save them offensively. I feel like they could be better used than just that. Whether it is, Kyrie bringing the ball up most of the time, Luka off the ball, putting Luka in different situations, on the wing, throw him in the block a couple of times. He's bigger than a lot of point guards. Throw him in the block, throw him the free throw line like Porzingis, put him in different situations to keep defenses guessing. They might be better off. Then you can kind of flip it a little bit. Have Kyrie run around off the ball with Luka having it up top and try to get, Kyrie in a position where he can catch it, get on the move, get into the lane, stuff like that. I feel like there is another level that Dallas could go. Certain guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., who didn't show up. I feel like changing those pieces wouldn't be difficult. But looking at their group, Luka, Kyrie, Lively, is what Josh Green, it's Gafford at this point. I mean, I don't know necessarily their contract situation, but just looking at the guys who Jason Kidd relied on the most, I feel like there is something there. Just change how they operate a little bit. All right. I mean, once again, this is about the collection of the guys there, but I did want to highlight with this image the coaching staff as well, because right there next to Drew Holiday, it's Emil Jefferson, who was actually a teammate of Tatum's at Duke, but I think he had knee injuries or something, so he didn't really have an NBA career. I feel like him coming to the staff helped out a lot. I think it almost gave, I don't know, like it made Tatum more comfortable of sorts, right? And I don't know, maybe Emil Jefferson is destined for greater things. I don't know, but that move right there seemed like something that Tatum really wanted. The Celtics made happen. I mentioned earlier, like Sam Cassell, Charles Lee, they're not in this picture, but it just shows a group that came together. Because once again, a lot of talk about Tatum and Brown not liking each other and everything like that. This was a group that was fun to watch, seemed like they really enjoyed each other. Obviously, winning can cause everything to look a little better and for guys to feel better about each other. But this group just seemed like they had something different than past iterations of this team. Obviously, you would look at some of the glaring subtractions in terms of Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, guys like that. I mean, could they have won this if those guys are still there? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you that. But I also can say that with the three of those guys gone, the pieces that were substituted in for them contributed mightily to where this team is at right now. So just saying. Joe Mazzulla. Talked about him a little bit before, but the narratives around him definitely have to change now. The fact that he is the youngest coach in over 50 years to lead a team to a title in a pressure-packed city like Boston, with the pressure that followed this team all year, especially as they were dominating in the regular season, he coached masterfully. And that's obviously not to put everything like at his footstep, because like Sam Cassell, those guys, you have to give just the whole coaching staff a lot of credit. When Dallas, trying to protect Luka and Kyrie, would sit a big man in front of the rim, what did Mazzulla and the Celtics do? Put a guy along the baseline, as they call the dunker spot, whether it's Holiday, Derek White, I believe Jaylen Brown played there a little bit as well. That turned the tide in this series. Or when, Jaylen Brown goes up to Joe Mazzulla and goes, I'm taking Luka. If Luka sits, whatever. If Luka goes back in, I'm going back in. And he trusts Jaylen Brown to do that. Coaching. Kristaps Porzingis coming back from injury, ready to go. What does he do? Doesn't start him right away. Tells him to come off the bench. Would most coaches make that move? I don't know. But looking back on it, it makes sense. Because a lot of guys, first time in the finals, coming back from injury, might be a little bit overhyped at the start of a game. Make them sit a little bit, take a deep breath, watch the action a little bit, then going into the game, he looked great. The bench rotation of Hauser and Pritchard being solidified, and then, well, I guess Horford when Porzingis was starting. Those guys did well for their role. You have to credit the coaching staff for having them prepared. When Porzingis wasn't available, turning to Tillman and Tillman performing. That's preparation. That's the coaching. The regular season, Luke Cornett was a big part of what they did. That's on coaching, the preparation, everything like that. Them keeping their eyes on the prize as they were dominating all season. Goes into preparation, coaching. I think Jaylen Brown, Tatum will talk about all the time, like the kind of things Joe Mazzulla would tell them to get them going. You gotta start giving him credit. I'm not trying to tell you that he's like best coach in the league or anything like that. But all the like hot seat stuff because they didn't get it done last year. And as I said, the position he was thrown into, there was no reason to think he was on the hot seat based off of that. Obviously, Brad Stevens has a lot of faith in him because in that tough situation where Udoka's dismissed and they needed somebody, they turned to him. So Brad Stevens obviously thought that there was a good coach in there. And we're seeing it. He's intense. He's not afraid to talk about his faith and everything. He seems like he keeps it like 100 with the reporters and everything like that. Even when reporters, not only like national media but even local media, were doubting him, he kept doing what he needed to do for this team. And I would not be surprised if we see maybe some type of extension or rework deal for Joe Mazzulla, because I just feel like he has cemented himself within Celtics Nation. That's just me. I don't know, but that's how I feel about him. I think he's a up and coming coach, and I'm interested to see how he does next year. Because not even like they're newly going to have the target on their back, because they can always kind of have the target on their back for the past couple of years. But now as a legit champion, like, how does he coach this team? I'm intrigued by it. Horford and Drew Holiday. I'm going to start with Al Horford. Like that guy right there, I talked about it a little bit earlier. So happy for him. Just absolutely so happy for that guy. Looking at him winning back-to-back titles at Florida in college, going on to the Hawks, having a pit stop in Philly, Oklahoma City, the Celtics here, I believe for a second stint, actually. He has transformed his game and has kept up with the modern game, as well as, a lot of big men in the league. Coming out of Florida, he was more of a paint, touch, post-up type of big man and developed his outside shot. He was a back-to-the-basket guy early on. Now he's a prolific three-point shooter. He plays off of the Jays, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum really well, because they can run pick and roll with him, pick and pop. They can run all that with him. You can stand him in the corner, drive and kick. Like, he can do so many things for them while playing really good defense at the age of 38, about to be 39 soon. We saw him in this series switch out onto Luka and Kyrie and hold his own. We saw him battling on the boards. Like, he's just a glue guy. Whatever you need him to do, he can do it. Drew Holiday's the same way. I know Joel Embiid sat up there and talking about the Bucks won this ring for the Celtics or something like that. He was saying, when they were running their parade of like Celtics rivals up there for whatever reason. But Holiday's in Milwaukee. They decided they need Lillard for the scoring punch. Fine. He goes to Portland. Portland doesn't need him. Portland's rebuilding. They don't need an established veteran. They make him available. Anybody could have gotten him at that point. The Celtics get him. The minute he stepped on to that parquet floor, he acted like he belonged. Because he's another guy who's kind of like Al Horford. No ego, none of that. You want him to score 20 one night, he can do that. You want him to score 8, but lock up somebody defensively, he can do that. You want him to facilitate 6, 7 assists, he can do that. And it kind of just speaks to the nature of this team. Like everybody taking a step back for the collective group to push to the ultimate goal of winning the title. So I definitely want to highlight those two. They were critical to where the Celtics team is now, and I guess going forward, only because I don't know what Al Horford is going to do. Like, I think he still has a year on his deal, but he finally won a ring. So if I know the team's like partying and, well, not partying, well, celebrating in Miami or something. Like, he could go do all that. They could do their parade, and he could say, I think I'm going to call it a career. I finally accomplished what I wanted to do. Nobody's going to be mad at that. In fact, if he did that, I would love to see him on Celtics staff in some capacity. I don't know if he would do it, but I would love to see it. And Drew Holiday, what did he sign for? Was he like 3 more years or something? 3, 4 more years? There's a lot to be excited about going into next season because of these two and their leadership. Also, Brown and Tatum in the graphic here on both sides. Those two just showing Brown and Tatum like how to be professionals and all that. Just critical. Just exactly what the team needed. So now I want to get to Tatum and Brown. Because as happy as I am for, Horford, Holiday, Porzingis, and those guys, for these two right here, like, you have no idea. Jaylen Brown, doubted since the Celtics drafted him out of Cal, 3rd pick. Oddly enough, both of these stars, superstars, I'm going to go there. 3rd picks, pick ahead of them, Lakers, 1st pick, Sixers. So their careers could have been drastically different based off of those two teams. But they both ended up in Boston. Early on, as Tatum will tell you, it was rough, up and down, trying to figure out how to play alongside of each other. Media telling you Tatum was much better than Brown. Then this year, the whole switch up of Brown being better than Tatum. The constant comparing of the two instead of addressing them as an up-and-coming duo. It had to be tiresome for them. Jaylen Brown being, I guess, ridiculed for the contract, saying he didn't deserve it because they're looking at the Heat Game 7. When Tatum rolls his ankle, continues to play, obviously was not himself. And Jaylen Brown had a lot of turnovers because the defensive pressure was clearly all focused on him. The no left hand, all that. The Stephen A, he's not marketable based off of his source. He's a champion. Identifies a weakness in his game every year. Comes back the next year, a better player. They said he was only a slasher, can only finish at the rim, works on his jump shot. Said he had no left hand. He made a lot of plays with his left hand. They said defensively he has the tools to be a pretty good defender, but he kind of lacks focus sometimes. We'll pull up the tape with him against Luka in these finals. That's a guy who's locked in. They give him all NBA so he could be a Supermax player, which I'm sure he's appreciative of. But then this season, he's not good enough for all NBA. Why? So guys like Booker and Halliburton could get in ahead of him. But you tell me, which player would you rather have? Jaylen Brown Devin Booker, Halliburton? No, I'm just asking the question. You look at just the maturation of him, because he's a guy who stepped up as a leader when Marcus Smart left. I mean, he's a guy who just has leadership qualities. Super intelligent, hardworking. It just had all the makings. Obviously, Brad Stevens saw that. Because think about how many years were the rumors about trading Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant or insert any other name, and Brad Stevens didn't do it. This is why. Jason Tatum coming out of Duke. I'm sure you've heard the story of him and his mom. Great story. You got Deuces in this picture. I had to get Deuce in there. Like, it's Deuce. Coming into the league, 19 years old, young father, and you don't hear about anything about him off the court. No issues. He works on his game, worked on the relationship between he and Jaylen Brown while being a dad. Deuce is always there. You always see them in the pre-games. Deuce is helping him working out. Like, that right there is something that should be applauded. And I feel like it's probably going to be a little bit now, but constantly bringing up his shortcomings. Like I said before, the Warriors finals, when he was dealing with the wrist injury, which they never put that in when they talk about the shortcomings against the Warriors. He had a wrist injury. I mean, they're quick to tell you about the injuries of other players, but not him. I don't know. Like I said, the Game 7 with the Heat, rolled his ankle. That's talked about in passing when talking about them coming up short. He's not clutch. The man could drop 50 in a playoff game against a Sixers team. He's not clutch. Okay, cool. The same guy early in his career went toe-to-toe with LeBron in a Game 7. Yes, they lost that game, but he had his moment. Drove to the lane, dunked on LeBron, stared at LeBron. But he doesn't have that dog in him. Okay, cool. Transformed his body. Added 25 pounds of muscle. Because people said he took too many perimeter shots. What did he do this year? Found himself in the post a lot more. Found himself driving to the rim a lot more. His free throws per game went up. But he settles too much. But look at him now. Look at Jaylen Brown now. Champions. So the narrative between the two, got to change it now. Now they need to be recognized as a top duo in the league. They need to be recognized as guys who can win. They need to be recognized as guys who are clutch. I'm just saying. Just saying. That might be the last image I have. So, as a Celtics fan, obviously I'm excited, right? There's no doubt about that. And I know that there's going to be some big decisions coming down the line. But before I do get out of here, I do got to talk about even the narratives now after the Celtics have won about the series being boring and all this kind of stuff. Like, can we stop the whole my team didn't win, so now it's boring or it's rigged, it's scripted? I mean, sure. 2008, they win it on June 17th. 2024, they win it on June 17th. It's not a script. It's the way the calendar fell. Like, come on now. June 17th, 617, Boston area code. I get it. You want to put on your tinfoil hat, get your conspiracy theories going, knock yourself out. Also, the 180 flip from the media now talking about, Oh, we underestimated how great they were. We underestimated how how good of an executive Brad Stevens was bringing these guys together. We underestimated how good Porzingis could be, or Holiday, or whatever they want to say they underestimated. That's on y'all. They gave you evidence all season how good they were. Y'all chose to disregard them because the East was so weak. You guys wanted to elevate Anthony Edwards, calling him Anthony Edwards Jordan when they knocked off the Nuggets. You wanted to elevate the Mavericks because they knocked off Minnesota with Luka and Kyrie. You wanted to talk about Dallas's defense while looking at Boston, who top 2 defense all season. But once again, they played a weak East, so wanted to disregard it. Cool. You want to put guys ahead of Tatum in your top 10, top 5 list or whatever that haven't accomplished a quarter of what he's done in this league. But that's fine because he had to prove he was a winner. While you have some guys that people are putting ahead of him haven't won a thing in this league, but they don't have anything to prove, Tatum had to prove it. That's fine. Same with Jaylen Brown. He had to prove he was worth his contract. Well, you have other guys that are getting big money that aren't doing anything on some of these teams that are coming up well short of where Boston's been several seasons with these two. Once again, everybody's allowed to have an opinion. I get it. Some of it's agenda-driven, narrative-driven, or maybe it's just hate. I don't know. But at the end of the day, they got it done. That's all I got to say. I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. Appreciate you all for checking out the video. Bit of a longer one, but I mean, my squad pulled through, got a title. I had to go a little bit longer. So definitely appreciate that. If you made it to the end, once again, I appreciate you. Leave a comment if you made it all the way through. So just for my knowledge, I just want to know. But yeah, so enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe. God bless. I guess until next October, the NBA is now off. We do have the Olympics. So we'll see some of these players over in France. Not only Team USA, but obviously a global game. So we'll see a lot of NBA players on for other countries as well, which that should be fun. But the NBA, yeah, and like Tatum said, go get another one. But you enjoy yourself. All right, bye.